So a warm welcome, everyone. We are glad that you're joining us today. With me, as you can see, is Liese Blevi from KPMG. Thanks for joining us, Liese, today. Really glad having you as well. And also, thank you, Susanne, that you're going to make it again to do that live demo of a PAFnow product version today, the PAFnow Audit. Thanks for joining me, and all of you a warm welcome. Before we kick off the presentation, let me mention that you can share your questions during the presentation using the chat function. We will answer all the questions after the presentation, if there is time left, directly at the end of today's presentation. For all of you who have not heard about Process Analytics Factory before, let me quickly introduce us to you. So PAFnow started its process mining journey 13 years ago, and our mission is to make process mining effortless for everyone. 6 years ago, we started to develop PAFnow, which is software mining business processes. PAFnow is based on more than 10 years of R&D and backed up by 300 process mining projects. Today, PAFnow is used by Fortune 500 companies around the world. It's in use in a lot of internal audit departments already, and it's recognized as a category vanguard by Gartner, Forrester, HFS, BARC, or Everest Group. What is process mining? With one click, in one look, PAFnow gives you the full picture. PAFnow visualizes millions of rows of data in one process map. And PAFnow delivers pre-built automated process analysis dashboards for auditors. So you can pinpoint processes with 100% accuracy and based on facts. You can immediately detect what remains completely invisible through interviews, workshops, walkthroughs, and sample testing. We put process mining where it belongs. We implemented PAFnow in Power BI. Through Power BI, it's embedded in the Power Platform. It's built on what's working. It's inclusive. It's effortless. Why we built it this way? We wanted to have a more accessible process mining solution so that everyone can experience the benefits. The role of internal audit is to provide independent assurance that an organization's risk management, governance, and internal control processes are operating effectively. But let me use this opportunity to hand over to Liese, who will talk more detail about the motivation for process mining in internal audit.
So let me first introduce myself. So my name is Liese Blevi and I work for KPMG Belgium, and more specifically for the Lighthouse, which is our center of excellence around data and data-driven technologies. So that's where we also see the fit with PAFnow. And in my role, I am responsible to integrate data and analytics and process mining as much as possible in our audit engagements, being both internal audit and external audit. So before I go into how process mining can support the internal audit function, I think it's important to understand the current challenges. As you can see normally on the screen now, I want to talk about 4 challenges today. So the first one is the exposure to continued and even increased pressure to do more with less. And this combined with growing expectations from the board, from senior management, to provide enhanced value. And it's not only a matter of providing better insights and new insights into control effectiveness, but what we see is that the internal audit role is also shifting from the more value preserving activities, which are there to keep the current business running, to the more value creating activities, which is there to improve the business. And this with an emphasis on enterprise risk management and governance. And then the 4th challenge is to provide additional perspective on daily business operations. So what the board expects is not just a report with insights that they already got from other departments, but really bring something new to the table. So I can imagine that this is already a lot to take. But in the next slides, I will go a bit further on this. And of course, I will also try to explain how process mining can help in tackling these challenges. So let's begin. Continued pressure to do more with less. To do more with less, what does it actually mean? In my understanding, it's becoming more and more efficient year by year. And that's not an easy task, I think. I hope you will agree, but we are we're living in a rapidly changing environment with technological innovations, but also with the growing regulatory demands. And these are both factors which increase the complexity and speed of risks. So you see, not easy. But luckily, it's not all bad, because these evolutions also brings its opportunities. And thanks to the increasing level of digitalization of business processes and better integration of systems, better communication, and even common language between systems, there is more and more organizational data being stored and also ready to be exploited. Or maybe better said, ready to be used for process mining in PAFnow. Let's have a look how process mining can help. What you can see, PAFnow is a repeatable technology. So once you set it up, it is really easy to repeat itself. So you need to first set up your ETL layer to extract, transform, and load the data from your IT systems into Power BI, and once it's there, you are ready to start your analyzing. And this might be an investment at first, but as from then you can easily repeat the analysis, and this is really an improvement, a reduction of the manual effort required for your audit preparation. So it's an efficiency gain and time you gain to do another audit, or to even increase the number of audits you perform per year. And that's not all. So another thing, a great advantage of process mining is that your process process map is being generated automatically. There where you previously had a time-consuming effort into drafting and creating the process map, this is now automatically done for you. And another advantage of that is that you already learn a lot upfront before you go to the business and have your interviews to do the walkthrough. You already learned a lot from the data itself. So in that first interview, you can already do targeted questions, questions that you would in more traditional approaches, for example, only ask in the second or the third interview. This is also a great advantage with these powerful visuals. So that was already an answer to that first challenge. So let's move then to the second one, expectations to provide enhanced value. What we see is that not only sufficient anymore to just say to the board, okay, your controls are effective or not. What we see also based on a survey that was performed by KPMG is that 50% also would like to gain more transparency in how we came to an audit opinion and also what we learned from the audit. And that's actually also something where process mining can help with. Because the process maps of PAFnow are really strong visuals, visuals which help you to communicate to the business your findings. So you can really show them where the process goes wrong, and just rather than giving them a figure, for example, which makes it very understandable to them and also gives more value towards them. And also another advantage of that, or something else in the process map, is that the process map is based on a full population, so 100% of your records. So that process map really gives you the complete picture. So you can step away from traditional testing method, sample testings, and these traditional ones are also rather limited. But here with process mining, you can really see the total percentage of cases that are conforming to your business rules and also the percentage of cases that are non-conforming. And then what you can do is, of course, go deeper into those non-conforming cases and take a sample of that, for example. Another advantage of that full population testing is that you get to see all the possible process paths. Also, in more traditional approaches, for example, if you're doing interviews, what you will always have is some level of subjectivity. And it's not that people don't want to tell you all the different paths, but it's also sometimes a thing of not knowing it. So people are telling you what they think the process looks like, but in reality, this can be very different. So at KPMG, we like to refer to the desired path as being the well-controlled highway, as you can see on the screen. So we have our cars going through the different control points, which are representing controls, like for example, authorization or three-way matching. But what we can see here as well is that some people are taking the helicopter, for example, or taking a bicycle, so going around that well-controlled highway. And that is what we are discovering with process mining and with PAFnow. PAFnow really has a strong conformance checking functionality, which enables you to easily identify these paths that are not following the highway. So I hope that this already also gives an answer to the second challenge. And then I suggest we move to the third one. So this one is an increased emphasis on enterprise risk management and governance. So to understand this challenge, I think it's important to know what's the difference between audit and enterprise risk management. And indeed, they are closely linked together. So enterprise risk management really proactively helps the business to identify risks and also provides recommendations on what the business should do in order to manage these risks. And yeah, that's then the basis for the business to implement a solution. And then comes audit, who will check if that solution is actually doing what it should do and is indeed capable of managing the risk. And what we see now is that the responsibility of the internal audit function is moving more towards the enterprise risk management as well. So and now you might think how process mining can help in this. And that's actually because of its end-to-end view. So when you are building your event log, you can make an end-to-end view. For example, based on the data in your ERP system or based on a combination of data from different IT systems. And this will give you then the process view across the different departments. So this is also an advantage of stepping away of those interviews where you typically have one certain aspect of the process being discussed. But now with the process map, you really see the total view. So that also helps in identifying the complete compliance and risk landscape. And based on that, there can then be made recommendations for an integrated set of governance, compliance, and risk activities, instead of having different departments doing the same activities. So, and next to that, what I also said before, with regard to the first challenge, is that PAFnow is a repeatable and sustainable technology. So instead of just increasing the frequency with a few times a year, you can take it even further and deploy it for continuous audit monitoring. So that way, it helps you in the early detection of new patterns and new trends. And that way you can adapt your audit planning to audits in the most risky areas. So that was it for the third challenge. And with that enterprise-wide view, we can immediately go to the next one to provide additional perspective on operations, because that enterprise-wide view is really an advantage of internal audit. Actually, no other group or department has such a view on the organization. So it puts internal audit in the perfect position to give an additional perspective. And usually when you mention audit to someone, immediately they will say it's about financial risk. But actually, that should not be the only focus. There can be a lot of other risks within your business risks, operational risks. So, and also there, PAFnow has multiple functionalities to help you with. You can analyze throughput times between activities and drill down through the root cause analyzer, where you can then see what is actually going wrong and causing the bottlenecks. And a functionality that I really like is the benchmarking. So you can benchmark or compare, for example, the processes of different entities next to each other, or processes related to different products. And from that, you can then learn and maybe spot best practices, which you can also leverage towards your other entities. So it can really be a help in standardization and harmonization as well, and helping the business realizing their strategy. So with all this was the last challenge. I hope this made you enthusiastic to try it out. And if it did, then this is an example of a typical journey that you can follow in order to integrate data and analytics into your internal audit. So starting with the planning phase, where you will first define your audit objectives. Do you want to reach with your audit? And based on a first high-level understanding of the business, you can work out a work plan. And then you go to the next phase, the scoping phase, where you check which data is available and which can you use to reach those audit objectives. And then you can find a match with the type of analytics that is suitable to help you with your analysis. And of course, this might be process mining. And you can adapt your work program to that. And then the fieldwork starts the actual analysis, of course, after which you can report your findings. And by repeating this process, you can implement continuous improvement and ultimately come to the continuous auditing parts. So this brings me to the end of the presentation. So I hope it was interesting to you and that you learned something from it. And then I will now give the word to Susanne, who will give a demo and show some of the nice functionalities that I talked about as well.
Thank you, Liese, so much. I really liked what you shared, and I think everybody out there is now super curious about how it looks in the product. So I'm super happy to share that with you. So then let's get started with all the highlights we have here in the audit edition of PAFnow. But before we come to the highlights, let me briefly introduce you to the data set and the process we used here for this demo. So in this demo, we have a typical purchase to pay process, which usually starts with the creation of a purchase order, what you see here in our PAFnow Process Explorer as the very first activity. Then it is followed by several approval steps, like here, approved PO level 1, 2, and 3. And then some days later, the goods arrive, and you will find in the system a post of goods received here with GR in the short form. A few days later, then the invoice will be posted in the system, and finally the invoice will be paid. And this is like the very prominent example how you would start your process mining journey in an audit project. So you would start discovering and exploring your process on this very first page, what we have here. And additionally to the Process Explorer, we find several more information here on this page. So on top, we have the PAFnow duration card, which shows us the lead time for the selected process. And since there's no selection or filter active right now, we see the lead time of 29 days, 22 hours, 50 minutes, and 3 seconds, which is the lead time for the complete data set, which has 968 cases, 79 variants. And down here in the variant filter, we can easily select single variants. So just by, for instance, clicking on this variant number 1, we see that the page adjusts and that we filtered 471 cases and 1 variant now on this page. And also in the Process Explorer, we see exactly this very first variant. So this didn't change now because you see the slider here in the Process Explorer is completely to the left. So this picture is already like the most frequent variant in our process. When I now select like a different variant, I would see that this picture here changes. Now, when we think of audit projects, and also what we have learned from Liese is to find out the exceptions, the outliers, these cases and variants that didn't behave as we expected. Now, it's super easy to do that with PAFnow on the discovery page already by just using the slider down here. So when I move it a little bit to the right, I would add some more like less frequent variants. And when I would completely move it to the right, then I see like the least frequent variant here. I can do that by using the slider or also by just like scrolling down in my variant filter. And then I see that I have unique variants, and I can also select the unique variants here in the variant filter, and the page adjusts accordingly. So I will come to that point with unique variants and with maybe not compliance behavior regarding the sequences later, but for now, I decided to build a nice story like around lead times to show you how we can really narrow down from a broad picture to find really the outlier cases. And as I said, we will build it around lead times. So let me move the slider back completely to the left. And now I want you to focus again a little bit on the Process Explorer. So far, I talked about the activities here, but something else is super highlighting, namely the colors we used. So you see that between approved PO level 2 and approved PO level 3, the edge is highlighted in green because this was a super fast edge. Whereas down here, you see between post invoice and pay invoice, it took with 12 days and 16 hours in relation to the rest, what we see longer. So this is why it's highlighted in super red, but this is plausible and reasonable that between post invoice and pay invoice, it takes like, yeah, on average more than 12 days because we have payment terms and so on. Now, what I want you to show is that we can now use this map down here to find out maybe some outliers. In this tree map, you see cases and the invoice volume in euros clustered by plans. And we see that this biggest cluster here is the plant 1000, which has the highest invoice volume and the highest number of cases. And when I select that in a few seconds, you will see that the colors in the Process Explorer will change. So now I click that, and we remember that before it was between approved PO level 2 and 3 green, and down here it was highlighted in red. Now it changed a little bit. Now it is highlighted in red between create purchase order and approved PO level 1. And when I hover over the edge with my mouse, I see also what happened or what it describes. And it is highlighted in red with a little arrow pointing on top because it shows me that the average duration for my selection deviates from my complete population. So in my complete population, the average duration was 9 hours and 59 minutes. But in this selection, it's 1 day and 1 hour. So it increased by 15 hours and 26 minutes. And down here, in contrast, we see that the lead time decreased from post invoice to pay invoice by 3 days and 15 hours. So it was 12 days and 16 hours, or it is for the complete population, but for my selection, it is only 9 days and 1 hour. So it reduced by 3 days and 15 hours. Now, I would wonder why it took longer for this one plant between create purchase order until the first approval happened. And I would assume perhaps because we have selected this plant regarding the highest invoice volume, and probably we have different behaviors in the process regarding different invoice volumes. So that's an assumption that I want to prove now. And what I want to do is to take my filter from this page to another page to really drill down and narrow down my analysis to find out really the exceptional cases. So I can easily do that by just clicking drill through down here in this map, and then I can choose any page where I want to jump to using my filter, which is active now. And I prepared exactly what I assume to be further analyzed regarding the invoice volume on the difference analysis page. So I will jump to that. And by just like checking in any visual here, by hovering it, I would see that plant 1000 is included. So this is the filter being active from where I came from the discovery page. Now you see again the process explorer on this page, but with a little bit different feature. So here we use the all-in-one feature by showing according to the legend we use here. So we have used the attribute invoice volume with 4 bins as an legend. And then I see the process or the variance for each bin of the legend. So now since the slider is very to the left, it shows me only the most frequent variants, and this is in this case the buckets for group C and D. And when I compared it, I mean, we wanted to find out whether it takes longer for different invoice groups on this particular edge between create purchase order and approved PO level 1. And when I now zoom in, we see that for this group C, it takes on average 2 days and 5 hours, whereas for this group D, it takes only 3 minutes and 19 seconds. So this is again a finding where I can narrow down my analysis by just selecting this group down here, and again taking this filter with me to the next analysis. So my question now would be, when I hover over it again, and we have several more information in the tooltip, where the average duration is 2 days and 5 hours, but we see also that the minimum of duration is 9 seconds and the maximum of duration is 70 days and 3 hours. I wonder now if there are several cases or just outliers that have this maximum of duration, or how are the cases distributed, or how can I find out why this happened, and so on. So as I said, I would take this filter again to the next page and make another drill now to the lead times page. And we remember that we have a filter active from the discovery page, which was plant 1000. And now we have this group C active as a filter. And we also see that this drill through is active, what indicates us that we made a second drill here. So by just using this tooltip tip, and this works in almost, in every visual. Just let me show you that you see which filters are active on the visuals. So now what we want to do is, as I said, we want to find out the cases that skewed the distribution here in regarding duration between create PO and approved PO level 1. And this can easily be done by these filters we prepared here. So by just selecting the source of create purchase order. So this is the source activity, and then the target activity approved PO level 1. And we have seen that the average duration is 2 days and 5 hours. And now I want just to reduce my analysis on cases that are beyond the average. And then I just filter the duration days which are larger than 2 days, and then the page filters accordingly. And we see now we have only 19 cases and 7 variants that took longer than 2 days between create purchase order and approved PO level 1. Plus, we see in this table here also how they are distributed. So we have 2 cases which took almost 100 days in total. We have 2 cases which took around 70 days, and the rest of them took between 30 and 20 days. Now I can use also this bar chart here by just clicking it, and then it fires up the root cause analyzer. So I get a little bit of a feeling why this happened. And here we prepared the the SOD, whether it is conforming or non-conforming as a root cause analysis. And we see that in 66.7% of the 4 cases we have selected, the cases are actually non-conforming. So I can now take, again, this filter with me on the segregation of duty analysis page. So this is where I want to jump to now to find out whether the long lead time here is, I mean, this is one like outlier what we have found, but whether this is also like non-conforming regarding the segregation of duty rules we have defined and why it happened and where it happened. So let me just take this filter again with me and jump to segregation of duty analysis. And here you will see a little bit of different visualization of our process. So far, we have seen our PAFnow Process Explorer to visualize the data or the process, which aggregates all cases according to variance. But the PAFnow Case Viewer helps us to show each and every single case really on case level. And now, since we filtered on only these 4 cases which long lead time between create PO and approve PO level 1, we see also just really prominently that 2 cases are non-conforming regarding our segregation of duty rule, which is when the creation of the purchase order and the post goods receipt were executed by the same resource. And this is easily indicated by the color we see here, that in case 496, the same resource, and by just clicking on it, I can see also the swim lines accordingly. So create purchase requisition, create purchase order, all approvals, and then finally the post goods receipt was executed by the same resource, and it's also the same resource for this other case, which long lead time between create purchase order and approve purchase order level 1. Whereas the other 2 cases, they are conforming regarding our rule because the creation of the purchase order was executed by a different resource than the post of the goods received. But here we see probably a sequence compliance issue because the goods received were first posted before the approvals happened. So this is probably something we don't want. And this is something we can then check in the next step. But for here, I would like to kind of stop the first storyline because I showed you how easy it is to come from really high level to find some outliers and to narrow down the analysis by step by drilling through the report and finding out the cases which are not compliant. And then of course we have here anonymized the resources, but we could easily see that I mean, what was the same resource? We don't see which resource it was, but we see where they differ and where it happened or who executed it. Now, I can remove the filters by just resetting the filters on this page. So this will just throw away all filters that I kept with me by drilling through the report. And now I have the full picture of all my cases. And then I can just also very easily click on non-conforming cases. And I would see all cases that didn't behave conformingly regarding our rules. And then again, when I just check the cases regarding the colors, I see again that the very first cases, they were all executed in the beginning by the same resource. And then when I go down here, I again see something like a compliance issue that regarding the sequences that create purchase order, create purchase requisition, approvals, and so on, was posted or by the same person, but then the post invoice happened in between. So these are like 2 different compliance issues, right? So we have the segregation of duty issue plus the sequence compliance issue. Now, this is something what we also can super easily check with PAFnow, and I will come to that soon. But before we will go to the sequence compliance analysis, I want to show you another page where you can also easily find out outliers regarding the variance. And this is why I would now jump to the variant analyzer page, where we will see again the process explorer, some visuals here in between, but where I would like you to focus on is this variant is unique field. So by just clicking yes here, it again fires up the root cause analyzer and it filters down my page on only unique variants. So unique means that like each case made a unique pathway to the system. And by clicking this, you see again the root cause analyzer fires up, and I see that I have a strong root cause for these 29 variants, or in this case also cases, for material group F6C. And now when I make a multi-selection, I can again filter down and showing me only these cases that belong to this one material group. And now when I again move the slider to the right, I see again a different feature of our Process Explorer by using again a legend, but now we have the processes side by side visualized. And now I can really zoom into this process picture here and analyzing whether there are deviations that I don't like or which are not compliant also. Now for the first variant, what I see here in blue is that from create purchase requisition, create purchase order, then the approval happened, and then it loops around between post goods received and post negative goods received. Then this is something what we don't want. In the next variant, what we see is that it probably is still like an open case. So after the post goods received, nothing happened else. So maybe we can ignore that. But then the next two variants, they are actually super interesting, because here I see probably like, again, a bad compliance issue, what we also have seen on this SOD analysis page already. But here now coming from variant is unique, and for this material group where I actually already see this root cause analysis. And I see that here the approvals happened again after post goods received. So for both, the variants only differ because this has a create purchase requisition, whereas this one starts directly with the creation of the purchase order. But then, as I said, after the goods received was posted, then the approvals followed, and then we loop back to post goods received. So this is something what we really don't want in terms of sequence compliance. So now let me jump to finally the sequence compliance analysis to show you how easily you can also set it up from there, and then find out which cases are not compliant regarding your sequences, and then also finally in the combination of segregation or duty or so. So on this page, we have the PAFnow event filter on the left side. And here you see again the PAFnow Process Explorer, again with the new feature, which is the conformance check. So how this conformance check works, I will show you in a couple of moments. Let's start with using the PAFnow event filter and setting up our to-be model, our reference model, where we decide based on the data how the process should look like. So by easily drag and dropping the activities from this list here into my graph, I can set up my process super easily. So I want to have the create purchase order, and then followed by the 3 approvals. So I will put it here. Then plus, it's probably conform if it's not only starting with create purchase order, but also with create purchase requisition or with the creation of a shopping cart. And you see that this is a dashed line. By just clicking on it, it becomes a solid line. And this means that this is really now the starting point. So this is directly followed, whereas the dashed line means it's eventually followed. And then I can continue down here by saying, okay, after the approvals, I want to have the post goods received. Then I want to have sometime later the post invoice. And finally, I want to have the pay invoice. And also I want to have this as the end activity. And then I click on this arrow, it becomes solid. And then we have seen also something like self loops we don't want. I can also easily set it up in the event filter by just clicking or dragging again the same activity. So now I want to exclude post goods received as self loops, and just setting it up like this by excluding it and making it also directly followed. And when I now fire it up, you will see that the page adjusts accordingly. So based on this process we defined here, we have 491 cases and 10 variants that would be like conform. So, and now in the Process Explorer, everything is red right now because we didn't set up a conformance model so far. But I can easily do it by just give it a thumbs up here, and then it turns green. And now everything is green because it's exactly what we now defined as a reference model. When I remove the filter from the event filter, it will delete the filter from the page, but it will still keep my model that I nicely defined here. And then I will make the slider again to the very left so that the picture becomes easier. And just let's select one variant here, which I want to show you. And this is now variant 3. And now the colors also help us to easily find the deviations in the process. So everything what is green is like according to our reference model. Everything what is gray happens in like in a path where one piece is compliant and the other piece is not compliant. So in this case, from creation of purchase order to approved PO level 1, this is conform. But then indicated with the yellow activities and arrows, we see that approved PO level 2 and 3 has been skipped. And this is what actually happened, and this is what we would expect to happen. So this is why this is red and this is yellow. But I can also easily adjust my reference model here by just, again, giving it a thumbs up. And then it takes also this variant to my reference model. And then I can also always easily check my reference model by just clicking on that button. And then I see how my reference model looks like. And also from here, I can adjust it. For instance, I don't like the post negative goods received at all. So I can just right click it and make it as not conforming. And then also what I don't like is probably this loop back from post goods received to approved PO level 1. I can also mark this as non-conforming, and probably I don't like the self loops here. So I easily can adjust my reference model. And then finally, what I can do is to use the filter. So I can either filter now my page that it shows me only the conforming cases, or from audit perspective, it's more important to see the non-conforming cases. So I will do that. I will filter my page to only non-conforming cases. And then we will see that we have 432 cases and 76 variants that are non-conforming. And then I can again make this nice trick by drilling through now, for instance, to the segregation of duty analysis again, just clicking here on non-conforming. And then finally, what I want to show you in this demo is that I again can make a drill through, and this is a drill through I can make really from every page. I mean, drill through is always possible from every page, but here, when you have a finding that you drill through to our case overview table or page, which is actually only a table, where you see really nicely represented your findings in a table, and this is now filled by case ID, purchase order ID, the invoice volume, payment term, and so on. But of course, you can put in everything you can think of what is important for you, and then just by easily export the data in Excel, it downloads this table as an Excel file, and then I have like also a nice documentation or a nice summary in really a nicely aggregated table. Plus what I see here is that the filters that were active. So you can also always document where your results came from. So now I'm at the end of my demo. I have the question to you, Tobias. Are there any questions to me which I can take?
Not as I can see here, but can you quickly talk about how a list of findings like this could be not just documented, but also shared? So I'm talking collaboration here. Can you say a couple of words about that?
Yeah, sure, of course. I mean, when you have it in Excel, you can easily use the share button here, but I think cooler is it. Sorry, I have to jump to this one, and I will leave my presenter mode to use just the functionality of Power BI in service here. So for instance, I can just comment it, and then based on the filter and the findings I have, I can say, Tobias, please check. And then you will receive an email with just the findings I have and the reference to this report page here. And then you can continue working on it or also downloading it or whatever. Plus, we have this chat in Teams functionality, so I can use that as well. Oh yeah, sign in. And then I can also share this link. Oh wow, share this link in Teams, which with any channel or in any channel where I have access to. So for instance, I could say search for, do we have something like a testing? And then I can choose, okay, in the development team, I share that link, and then it will probably pop up here in my Teams. Oh wow, now you see my Teams. I will close that for the demo, but it will appear there. So yeah, there are some nice functionalities, plus you have all the action triggers and engines from Power Platform as well.
Thank you so much for sharing. And by the way, it was a great presentation. Thank you so much for sharing the latest news about the PAFnow edition for internal audit with us. Liese, I have a question to you. Do you see more and more companies using Power BI in internal audit?
Yes, definitely. So maybe in the past, analyses were done in Excel, for example, but now we're going more and more to BI tools and towards Power BI because you can analyze a lot more data. So that's definitely a trend we see. And the fact that you can then do it continuously and repeat it is really an advantage as well. So we see indeed in internal audit engagements that we are supporting as well, that this is happening.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. There was another question how process mining could be seen against ACL. I think that's galvanized now and Caseware idea. And let me try to answer the question. I always believe and thought this is a complementary type of technology. So process mining is complementary to the typical audit tools like ACL Galvanize or Caseware idea. But I also have to admit that I have seen a couple of our customers directly starting to use Power BI, as you just said, Liese, which you can see as well, and using PAFnow as a combined analytical and process mining capability in internal audit. So that's also just a quick answer to a question we had in the chat. Maybe let's wrap up. Again, thanks for joining us today. It was a great pleasure to demonstrate the internal audit edition of PAFnow. Thank you, Liese, a lot for your great insights into how KPMG sees the value of process mining in internal audit. I found it really great. If there is more interest in other information about PAFnow for internal audit, there is a one-pager. There will be also a white paper made available very shortly. We are also going to share the recording of this webinar as soon as possible. And in case you would like to do a test drive with PAFnow Audit Edition, reach out to PAF either using the website form which is out there, or you can also send us an email at info@pafnow.com. And even better, if you are having a process audit in your process schedule for, let's say, Q1, Q2 next year, and you like to use a process mining expert like KPMG with the expertise also on how to best use PAFnow in audits, of course, you can also bring in KPMG and they will be demonstrating the power of a process mining PAFnow application during a very concrete audit and helping you in this respect as well. So let me summarize in saying a big thank you to, again, Liese and Susanne for helping us today and to do the demonstration and the PowerPoints and slides and information. Thanks to you for joining us today. It was a great pleasure to serve you. We wish you to stay safe and healthy. Again, thanks for joining us and we hope to talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye for now.